Okay, got that capacitor reflowed, connection points on it. I know it looks a little funny here. There's actually 2 holes at each one of those, I guess, in case the capacitor could be turned like more of a 45-degree angle. I don't know why. I don't see a lot of those that way, but there's 2 extra holes there. Kind of looks funny. And those holes don't necessarily need any solder on them because there's no pins coming through, but they're right beside the ones that I did solder. And then I reflowed that pin and that pin, talking about the big ones here. They're just for a heat sink on the other side for a transistor, so wanted to make sure that that heat sink was not you know, wobbling about and everything, because when you turn these chassis upside down, like I've got this one here, if you're not careful, I've got it pretty well positioned where, you know, I'm not knocking it around too much, and it's on some foam here. But any part that extends down, like heat sinks and stuff that you might be letting you know, help support it, they can you know, get their solder joints cracked and become wobbly and everything. So I've got those done, and I'm going back up here. Going to try to do some work on this bad point now. I got a response back on the arcade controls forum from Lil Sean. Appreciate that, Lil Sean. And I'm going to try to see if I can't connect that pin back to the good part of the trace there. I'm going to scrape it a little bit more. It's already been scraped some, I think. And I'm going to see if I can, you know, maybe bend the pin just slightly towards it and put a good bit of fresh solder on there, make the best connection I can. And he said if that didn't work, you could use some 110 volt electrical wire that's been stripped off and make the connection possibly on down here at the other horizontal yoke connector, or further on up, I guess, on the trace. If you could scrape it back a little more, you could probably just run a little bit of a jumper wire and reconnect it onto the trace there. But I'll be back in just a little bit and see if I can show you how that turned out. Now you can't see too good, but I did some additional scraping right here. That's probably maybe about 1/8 of an inch or a little more. Might be a little more than 1/8 of an inch there. And that was some of the trace that was left. Like I say, all around this pin there is nothing. There's nothing there to solder to. But this trace is showing continuity at this last little part that I scraped off on down to this pin here, the horizontal yoke pin, one of the horizontal yoke pins. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't bridge this with some solder. I might bend this pin slightly this way and see if I can get some solder to stick, and I'll be back in a minute and let you see if that went the way I hope it goes. Okay, I've got the flowing of this one joint done. I know you can't see it on this video too good. See if I shine a flashlight on there if you could see it a little better. But I had to bend that one pin from the flyback towards the trace and covered it with a glob of new solder and really got it on the trace good. I'm sure it's attached to the trace good. I'm just worried about that pin because it's on the pin pretty good, but it's not completely surrounding the pin and encasing it like the solder joints on these others. These others here, they're completely encased all the way around with solder. And I reflowed that one right there because it looked like it just looked a little lumpy to me. Went ahead and reflowed it, and like I said, reconnected this really bad one here. And you can't see it too good on this video. I need to get a better camera one day. Maybe I will. But I'm gonna go ahead and reflow this last horizontal yoke pin connection, and after I do that, I'm going to look over the board a little more. I think the AC power in connections, I haven't done those yet. I'll probably do those, and after that, if I can't find any more that look suspicious, I'm probably going to go ahead and check the chassis out if I've got time tonight. If not, I'll do that tomorrow as soon as I get home from work. Alright, I've got those 2 AC pins reflowed. Right here is your neutral, and up here is your hot. And it's just 2 wires on the opposite side that come in, and there's a pin right beside each one. So on my low resolution video it looks, I'm sure, very weird. Looks like lumps or something, but it's 2 solder joints. They've got a solder joint beside each one, but I just reflowed those because they looked a little cracked to me, and I sucked out the old solder, well, used the brake and got the old solder out, and that's completely brand new solder in there, so that should be in good shape. And like I said, we got our repair made on our pin for the flyback, and most of the other joints I could find on the board have been reflowed that are bad. Most of the other joints look pretty good. I think what I'm going to do is one last thing. I'm going to take 4 pictures of each corner of this board with the digital camera, and then I'm going to go back and scrutinize them on a LCD monitor here, blow them up and look at them real close, and that's a lot better than my eyes doing it that way. And I can look at all these joints, and if I see any bad ones that show up on the LCD screen from these pics that I take, then I can go back, since this board is numbered on the bottom for, you know, capacitors and resistors and everything, I can go right back to the exact solder joint and reflow it if it looks questionable, and that way I don't have to go over the entire board just reflowing unnecessarily. But I really think we've got the worst points. I think the flyback pin, that joint right there, and right here, vertical yoke pin connection for the one of the vertical yoke wires, I think those were the 2 main problems. And since his monitor chassis was working before, I think those 2 are going to make a big improvement, I hope, and we're going to see. And depending on how good it is, I'm going to contact him and ask him if he wants me to go ahead with the cap kit and the flyback installation. And you know, it'll take him a little longer to get it back from me because I'm going on a little 2-day vacation here over the weekend, or 3-day, I guess you would say. But I'll be back on Monday and finish up on this if I need to, and have all day to work on it. But I think it's best to take it slow and take care of everything. I know he probably wants the cap kit done. The flyback, to me, you know, if it's working really good after we do this, you know, he might want to save the flyback. He might want to save it for the future until he needs to put it in there. But we do have the board out and everything. It's probably going to be the best time to do it right now, until he gets a little more used to soldering and stuff. And it's a good experience for me because I've never done a flyback transformer, and I'm probably going to have to in the future. One of my boards, I'm sure, is probably going to need it. I thought about doing it to the Gauntlet Legends because it had a slight issue there from time to time that I thought might have something to do with the flyback, but, you know, be a good experience. But I'm going to cut away from here, and maybe I'll come back in just a little bit and let you know if I had to resolder any more joints, and show you those. And if I don't, then the next little clip will probably be me hooking this up to one of the tubes that I have to test it on. Well, I finished pretty much all the soldering work that I'm going to do at the moment to the board. Like I said, still got the brand new cap kit and flyback to put in, but I want to see if we've figured out what the problems were and repaired some of that. It's most definitely going to look better after you get brand new caps and all in it, but I just want to see if we fixed the problem he was having earlier with it going completely out on him and getting the retrace lines and everything in there. And I'm about to put it in this tube over here. This is a tube that was originally in my Mortal Kombat 1 here. It does have a weak blue gun, but otherwise it's okay. I already know that if there's, you know, any question about the blue output, it's because of the tube. The tube has a weak blue gun, but if you turn down the levels on the other two, you know, it looks okay. It just looks a little dim, and you know, not something that I would want to keep and play on all the time, but it's good enough for testing purposes. And I'm not going to do too much adjustments to his gains and stuff on his neck board. I'm just going to probably leave them like they are. I just want to make sure it's functioning, and the board's not, you know, eventually, you know, the image going out and everything like that, the problems he was having earlier. So we'll do that and get that all hooked up. And I got a few things I've got to do. I've got to I've got to make me an interface for his ground on his neck board, because that wasn't the type of connection I had on the chassis that was in the other tube, it was just a plain wire that was soldered onto the board, so I'm either going to have to solder me a little clip to plug onto this or something like that. Worst case scenario, I could take the piece of cardboard off the back of the neck board and just solder straight to one of those ground pins. No big deal, because I'm going to have to replace all the caps on this neck board anyway. I'm going to have to do soldering to the neck board, so it's not like I want to hurt anything. But that's just to get the ground connected to the neck board, which is very important. And then let's see, you have to connect up your degauss, which that'll plug right on here. I've got that on that monitor or that tube. This is probably going to be the biggest issue. That's just your signal wires and everything for your game board that you hook up. You got your red, green, blue for your RGB colors, and on the back side you got your ground. And one of these is probably horizontal sync and vertical sync. Sometimes they can use composite sync, sometimes they're separated. I'll have to pull out the schematics on my other Neotec board. I think they're very similar to this, and take a look where this plugs on there. I don't know if you can see. It's labeled on there RGB EVHS. I don't know what E is. I figured that would be the ground it's on for the black wire. V, that sounds like vertical sync, and then HS, horizontal sync. But I'll figure it out, no big deal. Just the thing is interfacing with that plug, because I don't have a plug like that, so I'll have to rig something. But it'll just be temporary, just so we can get the signal from the game board to test it with and all. And I do have a power connector for this. Recently there's a fellow on the forums, and he made me a plug that will fit this to get power to this chassis. It's the same as the one for the new Wells Gardner K7400 that I put in this Mortal Kombat here. So anyways, we'll be back, hopefully have the chassis in the frame for that tube over there, and have all the wiring connected up. Okay guys, I got the monitor chassis mounted in the frame for this tube, and we got to make some connections here. The monitor chassis wouldn't line up with the plate that was installed in this frame, and it's too small to bolt the plate that's underneath the chassis directly to this frame. They're just, you know, they're not compatible. So I was able to get one bolt to line up and screw that in, just to kind of help with the ground connection right there. And then at a couple of corners there, I used a zip tie and another couple at the back, and that's just holding this firmly in place. But they're going to have additional grounds run to the chassis anyway, so there shouldn't be any problems. This is just to hold it in place where it's not moving about, and it's got clearance there. It's not touching anything. So this is just a temporary install anyway, just to test it on this tube. But we'll go ahead and start making some connections. Right here we got to connect the degauss wire, and that's pretty standard on most of them. It's a 2-pin connector, and you can mount them either way around. Even though you see I've got a little black dot on there, I did mark this when I took it off the other chassis, so I just like to put things back the way they are. But you can you can actually plug them on either way. You could plug it on that way and it would still work with a degauss coil. But plug that on, and I need to be careful when I take it off, because yeah, this fits pretty tight, very snug actually. And the pins underneath this I had to resolder. They were cracked pretty bad. It's probably because it's such a tight fit, and it probably been unplugged a few times and plugged back on. It caused them to crack. But there's one of our connections. Let's see. Looking for, well, I don't want to do the neck board at the moment because it's going to get in the way of something else. Hold on just a second. Move my neck board out of the way. and I'm looking for the yoke. There we go. There's for the vertical and horizontal yoke wires connection. And see if I can tilt this so you can see the connection. Okay, if you look right by the flyback, there's two set of connectors there, and the one we're using is the one with less pins. It's got 4 pins. There's 2 for the vertical and 2 for the horizontal. And at first you'd be like, well, you can mount that either way, but if you look closely in this video, I'm kind of upside down now actually, but if you look on your right hand side, those 2 pins to the right, they have slight larger spacing between them than the other 2 on the opposite side. Actually, the other 3 are evenly spaced, and the 2 on the far right, they've got a larger space between them, so it's like it's keyed. And the connector's the same way. If you look at the connector, it's going to go on like that, and there's a larger space between those 2 on your right. It's got that little piece of plastic in there, and that kind of helps you key it. So, see if I can get this down here. Kind of tight spot. We got it on there, and we've got to seat it on down. There it is. Seated all the way down. Okay, I'm going to let the monitor lay back down because I've got it propped up. This is kind of hard to do while holding a camera. Okay, lean the monitor back down now. And we're going to put the neck board on next. And here you see on the neck board, you got your pins all the way around, and you've got this part right here that kind of keys the connection. When you set the neck board up on there, you want to set it on kind of easy and just barely kind of wiggle it in like a slight circular motion, just a little bit, until that starts to fall into place. And it'll fall in right here, and that will line up your pins and your holes in your neck board properly, and then you can press a little firmly and get it to seat all the way down. We start off by eyeballing it. And keep your neck board basically level with your plate that your motherboard's mounted on there. It's going to be off just a little bit, but then after it's sitting on there, it's just barely sitting on there. I just gave it a little bit of a wiggle, and I felt it just then. It just actually started to slide down into the keyed position, and I just start to give it a little bit of pressure, and then start to press down, and I feel the pins actually being inserted right now. But you want to put your fingers right behind where that socket is for the tube. If you put it like up here to a corner or down too low to a corner or anything, you could actually break the neck on your tube. You could break some pins off. You could crack your neck board, and that's the most firm place. It's about right here. It's a little bit below center on this one, so you can kind of feel it through here. But that's pretty much it. Let's see. Next, we could probably do the anode cap. And of course I would always recommend discharging. This looks like a pretty good shape anode cap. It doesn't look like there's any cracks or anything in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and just give it a little bit of a flex on there. And there it is. That's all there is to it. Usually I wouldn't recommend that. I haven't discharged this tube. I discharged it at least a couple of times the last time I took a chassis off of it, but they say that they can build a charge up. I was careful to just hold on to the rubber part and everything, but I've heard if there's a crack in it, you could still get a zap. You know, I wouldn't recommend doing it, but it's in there. I'm not touching anything around here. I'm not going to slide my finger under the suction cup or anything like that, so still taking basic precautions. I'm not trying to ground myself, on purpose or anything. I'm not touching the frame or anything like that, so it would still try to go through me, I'm sure, if the charge came out of there, but we're okay. And about the only other connection that I need to make right now is the ground for the neck board, and I'm not going to do it on camera because I'm probably going to have to make an adapter for that ground wire, and see if I can find it first in my mess of wires here. My ground wires disappeared. That's crazy, I can't find my ground. There it is. That's my ground. And so I'm going to have to run an extension. And that's grounded to the frame. These straps here go down here and get a ground off the frame. And I want to hook an extension up to this. And then I'm either going to solder it straight to the back of the ground connection on the neck board, which, let's see, try to see if I can see it. Can't see it in this position, so I may possibly have to remove the neck board again to do that, but I don't think I will. I think I'll just take this piece of cardboard off the back, find the correct pins, probably just solder me a temporary wire on there, and probably just use a wire nut to make a connection to this ground here. That'll be good enough for a temporary connection. And here's a power connection. That's what we'll hook up whenever we start to hook it up to the cabinet. And I'm pretty sure this chassis, the age it is, I'm pretty sure it does require an isolation transformer. So when you're doing something like this, you don't want to just run AC power to it unless you know that chassis doesn't need an isolation transformer, or you'll create some damage there. And luckily the connection that I have in the cab right here, the Mortal Kombat 1, already has isolation transformer run to this connector that I'm going to use to get power to this monitor. So we're going to cut away from here, and I'm going to get that ground wire connected up, and I'll come back.